Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 316 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, I had the opportunity to work with a local fraternity. They're called the Lancers at Trinity University in San Antonio to help them recruit and rebuild their fraternity. And I'm really happy to report it was a successful endeavor. And now I maintain friendships with many of the students on that campus that I've worked with over the years or just helped with various programs and workshops that I've put on into this campus. And I have to tell you, the students are absolutely incredible at Trinity University. So I feel really lucky and fortunate to be able to work with them. And our next guest is another great example. His name is Saul Malek. He is currently enrolled at Southern Methodist University. He's going for his master's in mental health counseling, and he's got an anticipated graduation in May of 2024. He is hopeful to practice in the field of addictions counseling after graduation. He's also been invited to speak at the New York Times, the St. John's School of Houston, and a plethora of addictions podcasts about his experiences in addiction and, more importantly, recovery. As a young person with over 3 years in recovery from compulsive gambling, he can sympathize with those who are struggling. At the same time, he's letting them know that they are not alone and they can reclaim their lives. Welcome to the show, Saul.
Thank you, Mike. It's really, really good to be here and see you again after, 5 years or so?
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've been on campus. So we're going to have to do something about that. I mean, I need to get back to campus soon.
So do I, man. I'm right there with you. You need to make a trip back to SA real soon.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds real good to me. So tell us, I mean, you decided on Trinity University in San Antonio for your undergraduate experience. Tell our audience, why did you choose Trinity?
Yeah, so Trinity, first of all, I actually didn't know about Trinity until my college counselor at St. John's in Houston, where I went to high school. She told me about it, and it seemed good for me for a few reasons. One of them being I was still close enough to my parents in Houston, 3 hours away without being too close. I still felt like I had the college experience away from home, but then, I could still see them every month or so when I needed. I also liked the idea of having small class sizes. That was something I grew really accustomed to at St. John's and Trinity, small liberal arts school. You get to know the professors really well. You get to know your classmates really well. So that was a big part of it. And my college counselor just said, look, this has a really good, educational sort of feel to it, a lot like St. John's. And so seemed to be a good fit for me. And San Antonio is a nice city to kind of explore. And so it just seemed to work out that way.
That's really great. I mean, it's so good that you had a school counselor that knew you as a person and what you needed in order to be successful and make those recommendations. It's so unfortunate because the school counselors today, there's like one school counselor for like all the high school students. And I feel so bad for them because they're just so overworked. Like, I feel like we need more counselors to keep up with the growing number of students in a lot of these high schools. And they're so valuable because here you can see, here's a counselor that made a great recommendation that fit perfectly with what you wanted in terms of a post high school experience. And if we don't have that for every kid in high school, then what? I mean, they just got to choose randomly and they might choose wrong.
That's a good point. I'm really, really fortunate and glad you mentioned that. Very fortunate to have had that sort of relationship at St. John. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're a member of Phi Sigma Chi at Trinity University. What made you want to join that particular fraternity?
Yeah, so, I actually wasn't a big partier or networker or anything in high school. I heard at Trinity that in order to socialize more and make professional connections and so on, it was good to go Greek. And so I rushed a handful of the fraternities, and Phi Sig happened to be one of the ones that I got really close with just from going to a lot of their rush events and meeting a lot of the guys. And there were a few of the upperclassmen that I felt really connected to. And I just felt like they had a very good balance because I didn't want to go all party, but I also didn't want to go, all studious. I wanted a little balance. I felt like they achieved that. And I felt like they were really inviting to me a lot of the events. And when they asked me to join, I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of expand my horizons and get out of the Trinity bubble as best I could while still being Trinity. So,
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy you found your home at Phi Sig. I mean, I really think that there's a fraternity, there's a sorority out there for every college student. And so I'm just so happy that they have a whole bunch to choose from, that everyone can go check it out and see where they fit. I'm just glad that you had that experience because I do think it helps. I mean, it just helps these students assimilate. It helps these students to have that group of friends that are going to be there for them and then network with, because there are a lot of alumni for Phi Sig and some of the other fraternities that have been there for decades and decades and decades. So I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I know you came to when I was there speaking on campus. I remember that you were out there in the audience. What do you remember about that program, even though it was like 5 years ago?
Yeah, what actually stuck out to me, the first thing that stuck out to me about that talk was not the content itself, which I hope that doesn't offend you. What actually stuck out to me was that I went to add you on LinkedIn as soon as the talk concluded. And I'm not some LinkedIn fanatic who goes around adding people from out of nowhere to try to make, vague connections. I really enjoyed the talk. And I do recall that it was about hazing, or more specifically, anti-hazing. I'm not trying to put in the impression that you were promoting that sort of behavior, but it was a talk on hazing in fraternities. And what really stuck out to me, I think, was the delivery that you brought to the presentation, because unfortunately I've seen a number of speakers over the years in middle school, high school, and college even, and a lot of the time it comes across as maybe preachy or maybe talking down to the level of the students. But from what I recall, it was more like a workshop or like a collaborative sort of engagement where students felt like they were being listened to and understood. And at the same time, the information was valuable about anti-hazing sort of strategy. So I thought, it was a really well performed presentation, and that's why I remembered to reach out to you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm really happy that you did reach out. I love it when students do reach out on LinkedIn or on social media after a program like that, and then they stay in contact. I mean, clearly, you knew who to reach out to spread your message. So I love that. And, it does make total sense to me. I mean, you might not remember all of the content that I gave 5 years ago. I mean, Lord knows, I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday. But the reality is you remembered how you felt in that presentation. You felt heard. You felt like you were part of the conversation. You felt like, hey, this is just somebody who's not talking down to us. He's a part of us. He wants to help us. And so, people remember how you made them feel. And, ultimately, that's the feeling that I want to give in every one of my programs. If people feel like they're a part of the conversation and I'm not talking down to them, but rather trying to lift them up, if they feel that, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives. And I think if nothing else, I hope that everybody feels the same way you do. I think that is really fantastic. Now, let's talk a little bit about, what you're passionate about. Obviously, you're in recovery right now and you're trying to help other college students. I mean, you started gambling while you were in college. Now you're 3 years in recovery. Talk to our audience a little bit about how it started, because I think many of them might find themselves in the same place you were at in college.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's as alien as even it was 5 years ago when I really got started on it. I played fantasy sports in middle school and high school, and it started very innocently, which I think is one of the main talking points I'd love to get across, is that for me at least, gambling or fantasy, all this sports stuff was very innocent. It was a way to bond with friends and be close and everything. But my sophomore year, a buddy of mine from a summer program I went to at Marist up in New York for sports communication, of all things, reached out and said, "You got to get in on this sports book. You always help me with my fantasy lineups, and this is a way, we can hammer the bookie, we can make some money." And basically I just started very low. I was actually pretty skeptical of it. I didn't want to lose any of the money I had saved up and that my parents had given me for college, and started really small. And what I realized after a few wins was that, hey, I'm pretty good. So why am I only betting, a Subway sandwich worth of money? Why not double it, triple it, whatever? Because clearly I'm good at it. So I'm a fool for not making more. And basically it just spiraled to where I upped the ante and I started betting on sports I didn't know about because I liked winning, which I was doing at first. And I really liked the action of it, which I think a lot of gamblers can relate to. So, hope I'm not veering too far off your question here. Basically, it just kind of progressed naturally as I got more invested in it. And then when I started losing, I couldn't accept it and I needed to recoup those losses. And that's something else I would say about people in a similar situation about how dangerous this stuff is that even relatively early on when I was really gambling, the solution seemed like the same thing as the problem because when you're down whatever amount of money, what's the quickest way? Oh, win some grand parlay and bet on 5 teams and win it overnight. And so it just the hole gets deeper and deeper. And you dig that hole, and it's really easy to get pulled in deeper to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think now more than ever, I mean, I see it being advertised like on NFL games and like on the radio all the time. I feel like we're being inundated with gambling messages no matter where we go. I mean, do you feel that too?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't watch nearly as much sports as I used to, but heck, even on Instagram, and I'll watch some of the highlights on Sports Center's page, and all these ads will come up that are marketed toward young people that are really, I think, awful, where it'll say, if Kevin Durant makes 1 point, you'll win $100 for free. And I mean, what 10-year-old kid who's starting to, get online sees that and doesn't want to participate? So, I mean, kids are getting younger, I think, that are starting, and I don't have the data on hand to verify that. It's just sort of intuition. Like you said, the advertisements are everywhere. You can't watch sports without watching that inadvertently.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about your family and friends. I mean, did the gambling affect your reputation with all of them as well?
I'd say it did. I'd say it did. And I'd say with that, the main way it affected those relationships was that I was not believable at all. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of young people don't see about the gambling problem is that dishonesty is just a natural component of being a compulsive gambler. And my reputation was bad in the sense that I wasn't trustworthy or anything, and I'd lie about money and what I was doing, and it became pretty apparent that that was the case. But also, I just wasn't interesting, excuse me, to hang out with anymore because all I wanted to talk about was the most recent loss I had. And damn, I was so close, and so on. And what person who's normal wants to hang out with someone who only talks about their gambling losses, needing a bookie, and so on? And that's something I think was a big part of it was my reputation being impacted, and I think that's something that maybe outsiders don't know. They think maybe it's just a financial problem, but really finances are a part of it. It's not the whole picture.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it takes a lot of bravery to be honest about, your relationships with your friends, and maybe you weren't being a really good friend at that time because your mind was being consumed by the gambling. And how do I find another bookie? How do I get over this loss? And yeah, I mean, not everybody necessarily wants to talk about that. There's
I
other
think it's
things.
weird if they did. Yeah, I
Right.
think
I
it's
mean, it'd be
weird if
weird if they did want to talk about that
they
all
did.
the time, right? So,
Right.
how did you know that you hit rock bottom in terms of the compulsive gambling?
I have a few moments, I think, but I'll say something that really stands out because I do know we're on a time schedule here. I'd say a moment that really stuck out that proved to me that this had no hope for it was actually I won a bet for a good amount of money on some UFC fight, and I let all my roommates know I had money on it. And then when it won, they were all, high-fiving me, hyping me up. Oh my God, you just hit that bet. And I vividly still remember that feeling of being totally isolated because in my mind it finally clicked to me for whatever reason that I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop. Even though I had that win, I knew it was going back into more gambling, and that was hopeless for me. I think that was a really big sign of bottom, not the consistent losses, but finally getting a win, which was apparently what I wanted the whole time. And then finally getting that win and realizing this is just going to prolong this cycle made it even worse.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, you won that particular bet, but yet you knew that you were out of control, that this wasn't going to stop, and you couldn't stop yourself.
That's probably, I mean, very briefly, I think that's another thing that's so dangerous about it is that the bigger the wins become, the more these bookies are willing to extend lines of credit. So that's just more debt that a person can draw themselves into without actually having the bankroll to finance it. Because you win way above your pay grade, and then you start betting that way because that's where you're only able to achieve the high at that point.
Oh my God. I mean, it's almost like drugs in that sense. I mean, when you get a first hit of dopamine or whatever it is that you're getting, you keep chasing that high, but you're never going to get that high. I mean, it's the same with drugs. I mean, it's the same exact thing. They keep chasing something that they're never going to attain, and they have to keep taking more and more in order to get that same first high that they got. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what's your message to other college students that are starting right now to get into this world of online gambling?
See, my initial message that I thought to say was to tell them not to do it, but I think that's sort of basic and maybe would fall on deaf ears. I know for me it wouldn't work. I think my message would be one of caution and not prevention entirely, because I think people are going to make their own decisions. But I would just caution people from my own experience that it's a very subtle progression. That's what I would say. The online stuff, especially because it's so quick, the action's so quick, and there's so many markets out there. I mean, you can bet on make up any random event in any random country or whatever. It's out there. So I think that's something I would say is you think now you're only betting basketball, it's not a problem, but watch out, because in 1 week when you're betting ping pong matches and it's getting in over your head, now you're in trouble. So seems like it can be innocent at first, but I would say my message is one of caution that, hey, this stuff can get out of hand. It can get out of hand fast. Doesn't matter how much money your family has. None of it's safe once you're at that point of being compulsive.
Yeah. I mean, when you get the itch to gamble, and I mean, it's a lifelong addiction. I mean, it's same with alcohol and other forms of addiction. I mean, are there things that you can do like working out at the gym or like go for a run? I mean, are there things that you do to basically replace that urge that you have?
I think that the compulsive nature, at least for me, has never totally disappeared. I think those things you mentioned are helpful. Going to the gym, eating better, sleeping, finding stuff to stay busy with. What's mainly helped for me, and this isn't to plug any sort of group for others, just for me, being in a 12-step program for compulsive gambling. I know many are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, so the same idea for compulsive gambling. And basically what helped a lot was doing a lot of writing. There's different workbooks and questions and so on. And at least temporarily, that gave a more clear picture of really how insane it was. And so once I got over kind of the initial real bad, like physical urges, then I was able to sort of build on it and kind of work on other things to where the compulsion sort of, drifted. But again, like you said, it is always there. I'm no more cured than someone who's gambling right now. I'm just arresting it today the same way I've done for the last, 40 months or whatever.
I think that gives people hope that that it is possible to stop that. But you obviously needed help, and there are 12-step programs that are out there that'll help them. And I love the fact that you're journaling, that you're writing, that you're answering these questions to help you really to get your brain back to healthy again, to realize the control that it had over you. So that's really good to hear that, and I'm so proud of you too, just to say that you've been in recovery for years now. And I just want to say I'm proud of you, man. I think that's awesome.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. It's definitely been helpful for me and my family and everyone because it does affect so many people.
Yeah. Now I saw you're now enrolled at Southern Methodist University for your master's in mental health counseling. What do you want to do after you graduate?
Yeah, so I mean, once I graduate, I'm hoping to, well, first I'd be working in some sort of a clinic somewhere in some office doing just counseling work, seeing clients, preferably mostly addiction clients, and then hopefully down the road I'd have my own practice. But I also don't want to lose track of this goal I have of doing speaking arrangements. I mean, that is so interesting and appealing to me, and already started going crazy with the brainstorming of visuals, PowerPoints, things to bring in, talk about all that. And so, that's something I want to keep fresh as well as being able to speak, because I feel like I could do a good job. I feel like it's an important message, and just something to be doing that's helping the community.
Well, keep at it. I mean, never give up on that dream. If that's, what your dream is, then go out there and do it. I'll tell you from experience that the only way to get better at it is to do it over and over and over again, because each time out, it's going to get slightly better. You're going to learn a lot of things along the way. Like, you're going to listen to the crowd reaction when you throw out a joke, when you put up a slide, and you're just, trial and error. You're going to be like, oh, okay, that worked. I got to, make sure I include that next time, right? So it's a lot of trial and error. People think that there's just a shortcut and you're going to hit the stage and everything is going to work all the time. That's a lie.
Mhm.
It takes work and a lot of trial and error before you get it perfected. But once you get it perfected, then you can kind of do it on autopilot, and that is pretty wild, and a lot of fun when you get those positive reactions, and people start following you on social media and sending you messages, and really just become fans, and they'll follow you for decades. So it's really kind of cool when that happens. And so I'm sure the same thing's going to happen for you. Just keep at it. If you believe in it and you want this to be a reality, it can be a reality. So keep at it. I think that's fantastic. And SMU, man, what a university and what a Greek system they have. Oh my gosh.
They have a lot of frat activity from what I've seen, even though I'm not on campus more
Yeah.
than a few times a week. But
Yeah, you see, there's a lot of activity there for sure. I just spoke there probably about 6 months ago. There's a lot of fraternity activity going on at all times. So that's an interesting campus you landed on. So that's awesome. All right, so now we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So the next time that I'm speaking in Dallas, where should I go in town for a great meal?
so I have a few suggestions. One of them, and I don't like to make assumptions, but from your last name, I figured maybe you were also part of a tribe and that
I am.
you'd want a
I'm
good
Israeli.
kosher. Okay, I figured that you'd want a good kosher restaurant. So, I mean, I've been to a Derrit a few times and gotten some good schnitzel with some of my Hillel friends on campus. So,
Nice.
wanted to throw that one out there. There's ginger Thai on Mockingbird, which real good Vietnamese food. And then one last thing I would say, kind of give you a broad palette here, is Rodeo Goat. There's one in the Design District. They have really good burgers. Oh man, it's awesome. So try to go there a few times when I can. Not too much, I want to put on too much weight here, but it's a good place to be.
That sounds good. These are all great recommendations. You know me really well. I mean, you're already throwing out schnitzel. I'm like, I'm down. We got the Thai restaurant. I'm down. Okay. So that sounds really good. So next time I'm in Dallas, we'll definitely go out, and I'll pick up the tab for lunch. You don't have
Oh,
to pay
thank you.
for it.
Thank you.
You're a
It's
college
awesome.
student, so you can pay me back after you graduate and you start
Oh,
making money.
I'm on that Chipotle budget right now for sure. Yeah.
I understand. I've been a college student too. Things will get better. Okay. You're
Oh
going to
yeah,
make
I'm sure.
real money at some point.
Right, right. I'm hoping so.
No, this has been a lot of fun. So thanks so much for this. And I mean, if our college students, if they want to bring you in to speak on the dangers of gambling, where can they go in order to connect with you?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to continue on with. I have an Instagram page. My handle is still Cargo Rockies. I made it in middle school. I liked a baseball player on the Rockies, but that's my Instagram handle. You can just look up my name also if you want to find me. I'm on Facebook, and my email is Saul B, like Benjamin Saul B Malik at gmail.com. And I guess I'm also on LinkedIn, but not using TikTok and Snapchat, I guess, is kind of obsolete now. I don't use that, but use those other platforms.
All right, that sounds good. I'm telling you, TikTok is where it's at. I mean, all the undergraduates that I'm working with, they're all on TikTok. And I mean, some of my videos, they're getting like 850,000 views. So if you're passionate about this topic, I will tell you that there is a real market for, people who are battling gambling addictions and things like that. Once you find your niche on TikTok and they know that your account is all about overcoming gambling addictions, I mean, you will be shocked at the number of people that the community that you can build around gambling addiction and getting help. I mean, it'll blow your mind because the algorithm is that good. Once you start posting about it, you start using hashtags around gambling addiction, they will come to your account like in droves and you will be shocked. And these videos, they only have to be like 10, 15 seconds long. So it's not like a huge time commitment. And you could really just, bang out like 7 videos in one day and then just post them from your drafts, basically one a day. So that way it just looks like, you're active each day. But meanwhile, I just do them all in batch, like one day a week, and then I just release them one a day. But I'm telling you, if you want to reach the masses, that's the place to do it.
I believe it. I appreciate that. I was actually kind of thinking that, but I'm not hip with all the sound bites and everything, but it's no excuse. I mean, I would definitely want to tinker with that when the time is right and the semester is done and everything. And whatever it takes, to get ahead, I think is worth trying.
Yeah, definitely tinker and try it out. But I know you're going to be successful. You're obviously passionate about helping other people, which is why you're on the show. So keep up the good work. And just want to say that I'm proud of you. Again, those 3 years in recovery, keep it up and keep me posted. Let me know how things continue to go for you. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good. Really appreciate it.
All right, that sounds good. And to our audience, thanks so much for listening to Saul. If you liked his talk today, make sure that you like it. Make sure you share it on social media with other friends that might be experiencing gambling addiction or just people you're just concerned about. Give them a copy of this video. Make sure they listen to it because I definitely think that it will help them. And thanks so much, Saul. We appreciate you. Thanks to our listeners. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.